Everybody, thanks for coming today. We are going to get into percent questions, as you saw. Obviously one thing worth mentioning is that, on the GMAT focus, percents takes a pretty special significance just because you can see it in many places. You can see it in data insights with data sufficiency, and of course, the graphing table questions. It's a big topic there. And then, of course, in regular quant. So having your translations down, understanding the relationships between percents, all of that stuff is obviously incredibly important. Before jumping in, does anyone have any, we can do some questions at the end. Does anyone have any questions just regarding their studying, GMAT focus, anything that you would like answered? And if not, we'll just jump right in to some percent questions. No, the purpose of our webinars is not to, this isn't like a class. This is just doing some questions that I'm choosing. So it's not set up like a class where you're starting with the basics. If you need that type of stuff, certainly you can use our course, which I know many of you are. That will help, get you to a place where you can do some of the questions. I'm not giving you necessarily the hardest questions in the world, but, I am giving somewhat challenging stuff here. So first question I want to deal with, just a little bit of percent greater, percent less stuff. And look, these are the types of translations you really just want to, you want to know them like the back of your hand, because these are the things that are going to be a part of questions, but not necessarily the star of the question. So you want to be able to get through that stuff quick, especially in graphing type questions and things like that. So anyway, I'll give you guys a couple minutes. You can, when you get your answer, put it in the chat box, and then we'll go through the solution here and talk about some different methods you could use to attack a question like this. All right, I see some answers trickling in here. Now, so there's two ways of looking at a percent question anytime you have percents in the answer choices, right? Always two ways of looking at it. Option number one is we use variables for the starting value, right? So if you're talking about July 2001, you could say that's X, you could say it's N, you could say whatever. And that's a fine option. We do a lot of that in the course. Something that I've shared a lot with you guys here, though, is that I have no qualms or issues with using smart numbers where strategic, with ratios even, with fractions even, with a lot of different stuff. So here you could also say July 2001 is just equal to 100, right? That's also an option. And I like that option. I think it's a little bit cleaner. So then you go, okay, 5% greater. Well, that's 1.05 times 100. That's going to give you 105. And then this is where some people make the mistake, but it looks like most of you didn't, because you guys probably know this question well too. But something to look out for, 200% greater is not multiplying by 2, it's multiplying by 3. So you multiply by 3 and you get 315%. Obviously, the trap answer of 210 is there, which, you know, many people do fall for, which I've seen. So just be very, very careful with that. Okay, let's do some more stuff here. Next up, we've got some variable percents. There's a bunch I want to do with that. Let's start with one that's not so bad, which is this here. And again, I'll give you guys a few minutes and we'll discuss it. But remember, do what you feel comfortable with these. You know, I wouldn't say any process is right or wrong. Just, you know, find something that you feel comfortable with. And you can interchange them too, depending on the question. All right, so this was another interesting one. Now, here are just variables. So my curiosity is, did you guys just use the variables the way they were set up? Did you try to plug in numbers for the variables or anything like that? Yeah. In a case like this, I would say using the variables isn't so bad. So it shouldn't be a crazy thing to do it. I think sometimes, and again, I shift on this too, but sometimes I think plugging in variables is almost more, work than is necessary to come up with an answer, plugging in real values for variables. So a question like this, as long as you know how percents variable percents work, when you're talking about a markup of X%, it's just 100 plus X over 100. If you don't have that down, just get it memorized. Put stuff like that on flashcards. So when you see it, that's not going to be the stop gate for you in the question. And then a mark down is just 100 minus X over 100. And then you're just going to multiply through. You can use difference of squares up here. Obviously, you can kind of eyeball the answer choices to see what works and why E is the correct answer. And there you go. That's it. So, yeah, I think most of you guys probably did that. I want to do some more different ones, testing different stuff. So let me show you another variable-based question here. Let's see here. Take a look at this one here. Give you guys a couple minutes. All right, so as you guys can see, this one uses variable percents too. Some of the math is a little bit annoying here, but it's nothing crazy that can't be kind of handled if done, strategically and very step by step. So when you see the computer for $500 was increased by n%, that's quite simply 500 times 100 plus n over 100. And then we see that it's equal to a price when it's decreased by 100 minus n over 100. So if you just, if you just get to this point here, you're pretty set, right? Like there's not a ton more you have to deal with. You can obviously reduce down. You can make that 4, and then you're just distributing, cross-multiplying, and solving, and that's how you're coming up with 24. So, one of the things I always say is, your success is recognition and execution. Well, here's that in a nutshell, right? If you recognize what this is testing, and then you can execute, by the time you get to the execution stage, it's really nothing crazy. So, looks like you guys did good with that one. I have another question involving if you're going to plug or not. I want to do this one here next. Seems like everyone's good with the one we just did. That's good. Okay, this is another cool question. I wouldn't say this is the hardest question in the world, but there's definitely a strategic way to deal with it, which is something I really like. All right. So I see a lot of you guys got the right answers here. As far as your setup, were you using variables? Were you substituting in? What did that look like? Meaning substituting in real numbers. The difficulty is, I'd say this is a medium level question here. So nothing too outrageous. All right, so what's interesting here is, yes, there is some variable stuff you can kind of use here. So it's just wage and hours, right? So if you're doing the wage increase, it's 1.25 times the wage times the hours times some reduction percent-wise in the hours, right? Now that's got to equal the original pay, which is wage times hours. So we agree with that. The thing is, this all cancels, right? And then, of course, 1.25 just becomes 5 over 4. And then this becomes 100 minus n over 100, and that's equal to 1. So you can keep working this out and solving for n. That's definitely an option. One of the interesting things here is, though, you know that 5 over 4 times this expression has to equal 1. So in essence, that expression has to equal 4 over 5, because that's the only way you're going to get 1. 5 over 4 times 4 over 5 is equal to 1, right? So if you stop there and you say, okay, well, what does that equate to as a percent reduction? All you have to do here is 1 minus 4 over 5, which of course equals 1 over 5, which of course equals 0.2, which of course equals 20%. And that's literally your answer. And that's all you have to do there to finish this. So, yeah, that's it. That's exactly how I like to solve this, because it allows you to avoid doing some of this math that otherwise, you know, you could get twisted and turned around in. So yeah, that to me is a great way to deal with this question. And any question like it, anytime you have, you know, percent going down, a percent coming back up, you can do the same thing. I mean, I can put one more here that's less of a word problem so you can see it, but basically, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be obvious because the numbers are similar, but it's just this here. And see if you can, yeah, all I'm saying here is this here has to equal 4 over 5, because we're saying 5 over 4 times something equals 1. And the only way that's going to happen is if that thing that I just circled, 100 minus n over 100, is equivalent to 4 over 5. But to see what it is as a percent decrease, you have to subtract it from 1, which is essentially the same thing as subtracting it from 100%. So let's do one more here, and we can actually end on this question here. Let's practice the same method, and then, yeah, then we can kind of go from there. Yeah, and then obviously you guys know the answer here because it's flipped, but if I'm doing it the same way, so we have an item that is decreased by 20%, you call the item N. If you're decreasing by 20%, you can do it in fractions or you can do it in real numbers. But remember, a decrease of 20% is 4/5, right? And then you're increasing by some percentage, right? 100 plus N over 100. And we want it to go back to N. So it's like, well, what does 100 plus N over 100 have to be? Well, the N's cancel. So it's something times 1. Well, 4/5 times what is equal to 1? It's 5/4. But instead of subtracting it from 1, you subtract 1 from 5/4. Remember, 5/4 is 1.25. You subtract 1. That becomes 0.25, which is 25%. And that's your answer. So I'm not saying, you have to do it this way. You can do out the math, but this is kind of a nice little shortcut where you don't have to do as much to get to the answer. And you can practice this. I mean, you'll get used to percent ups, percents down. And the thing that they try to trap you on the GMAT is obviously is thinking that if you go up 20% to get back to break even, you got to go down 20%. And that's, just not the case. You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind. N is anything. N is the original price. All right, cool. So we can stop here. Does anyone have any questions here? It's an increase. We increased the percent by, let me make sure actually. Yeah, the item was decreased, so we had to increase it. Any questions here about your prep? You can use calculators just in the data insight section. That's it. Resources for basic arithmetic, I would just kind of go online and Google some stuff. I don't think you need a special book for that. We have a list of quant topics in our blogs. You can go check that out, or you can check out our course. That I wouldn't have time to give you all that here. Any other questions? Any other questions at all here? You could practice GMAT Club questions, but I would say first get through TTP, get through the official guide stuff, and then if you need more, practice them. But I don't know if you would need them at that point, to be honest. Any other questions? Yeah, you have to do official practice tests leading up to your GMAT for sure. Yep. But not as you go through. Do it at the end. Sorry, I misread that. The course just got updated with new question types that match some of the stuff that they've been doing on GMAT Focus. That's all. Yeah, just follow the study plan. We tell you when to take practice tests in the course. If you want to take a practice test to start out, even though we don't tell you to, I'm okay with that because it gives you a baseline score, but otherwise save them to the end. Any other questions? Well, you'll get there. I think you just got to continue to work through Target Test Prep. If you need an additional study plan that uses the official guide, certainly, reach out to us on live chat and we can send that over as well. Any other questions? I think you can reset them as much as you want. I don't know for those tests if you're going to see different questions though. You will see non-repeated questions once for the test that you pay for, but that might have been why they did it. They might have done it just for the paid tests, not for the free ones. Just ask for the additional study plan in live chat and we can send it over. Yeah, ends the original price. Any other questions? You'll have a whiteboard you can use for the online exam. TTP doesn't have any practice tests. We have you take the official ones. I think this recording will be available. I think we're going to put it on our YouTube channel. All right, any other last questions? Yes, you get a booklet at the test center. Online, you get a whiteboard and a marker. So yes, the test center is slightly different. Any other questions? Yeah, we could probably help you out. Again, just reach out to us and we can figure something out. I'm not sure I understand your question about the DI. Oh, how many percent questions there are? No one's going to know that because GMAT always changes it up. They're not that predictable. And that's how it's always been. That's what makes this test, challenging. There's no upcoming sessions more than these that I'm aware of. But we try to do these from time to time when we can. Any other questions? All right, well, looks like that was good. So hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about percents today. It was good chatting with everybody. We're always here if you need us. We'll be back at some point for some more of these guys. But if you need anything, reach out, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Have a good day, everybody. Have a good week. Talk soon.